there, Jeep lovers. Tom here. Today we received our box from BesTop. This is a BesTop Super Top Soft Top, and we're going to try to install it on the 1962 Willy's Jeep CJ5. The first thing that needs to be done before you really get started is to make a measurement from the top inside of the windshield up here 6 inches in down to the rear of the body back here, and it's supposed to be 69.5 inches. If not, you can adjust the bracket down here somewhat to try and achieve that distance. This one's pretty good. It's within an eighth inch on both sides, and you should check both sides. Okay, let's see what we have in the box. Not sure what that is. I believe these are called belt rails. There are 2 packages of those that I see. Then there's a large package of hardware and some more corner belt rails and all kinds of other stuff. Okay, I'm going to just cut the box open to get the rest of this out because it looks like it's one big piece. So let's just cut the box open. I don't want to cut my top apart. Okay. It's pretty much just one big piece in here, so we're going to have to read the instructions and see what to do with this. There aren't any more loose pieces. Okay, let's open the bag and see what we have. I see some paperwork. It says Super Top installation instructions. So it says what you're going to need here is a power drill, a center punch, adjustable wrench, utility knife, a 7/16 inch end wrench, a flathead screwdriver, a Phillips screwdriver, a hammer, tape measure, pencil, and safety glasses. So the first thing you want to do is install this corner belt rail. So it can only really line up one way. And before you drill anything on these edges, they recommend you check underneath to make sure there's no wiring, because you're going to be drilling through this edge. So you want to use this, use the actual belt rail as a template and center punch your holes here. Then we're going to drill with a 3/8 inch bit. I'll probably drill a pilot hole first. Okay, so I've set my center punch, and now I'm drilling the pilot hole. I've drilled my pilot holes, now I'm going to drill my 3/8 inch hole. Kind of goes against my grain to be drilling all these holes in the Jeep, but we want the top on there, so. So it's got to be done. Okay, so we're putting a 5/16 inch Phillips head bolt, 5/16 washer on the top, underneath the tapping plate, and it says not to tighten the bolts yet, just get them started. And it helps to have a nice big Phillips screwdriver too. We were trying to work on the side rails, the belt rails, and in the instructions it says there may be a 1/4 inch gap here, plus or minus, but they don't tell you anything, at least in my instructions, what to orient this to, why there's a gap, why there's not a gap. I called BesTop. They were trying to be helpful, but they still didn't really tell me where to put this rail. So we have a couple issues here. On this Jeep, there happened to be an old tube, looks like it was for a piece of bow frame that would have gone up. And then there's also this one, which has a little socket, looks like it was maybe for a door piece of some sort, I don't know. But anyway, when you put these on here and you leave a little gap there, one hole is going to be in this big one, It's going to be matching up with this, and the other one, the tapping plate's not going to get around this old socket here where this hole was. So we don't know where this goes, so what we're going to do is we're going to put the door on first. We're going to mount the hinges on the door. They go 5 inches from the bottom of the windshield gasket to the top of the first hinge, 15 to the top of the second hinge. We're going to do that, and then we're going to come back here. We're going to mount this up, and we're going to mount the striker plate up. So once we have our door on, we're going to know exactly where this needs to be. So I've done my measurements down for the hinges. I've marked my holes with a marker. I've used the hinge as a template. I'm going to center punch these holes and use a 5/32 inch drill bit to drill them out. Before you drill your holes, make sure there aren't any wires back there. There is a wire on mine. I believe it goes back to the taillights. And there was just a clip back here. But before you drill, make sure there's no wires. So these go in with the sheet metal screws. And they're pretty tight because there's a double layer back here. You're going through 2 layers, so it takes a little bit of work to get them to go. So I mounted the hinges. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this door handle. Just use a little panhead screw and then lock nut on the back. And there are some pre-cut holes in the fabric where these screws go through. And use a little lock nut. And a little 3/8 end wrench to hold the nut. And I'm going to get them all in before I tighten them all up. Now I'm going to trim some of this extra fabric with a utility knife. At least where the striker is. Being careful not to cut through the new door. So it's helped a lot to get the door mounted. We have a pretty good idea now where we want this side belt rail. But if you look, the striker is still a little bit too low. See, the striker is still a little bit too low. I'd like to bring the back of this door down a little bit. So there's a hinge adjustment right under here. Take a 7/16 inch wrench, loosen the 2 nuts up here, and it should be able to be adjusted down a little bit. Okay, the hinge adjustment helped a lot. Now I got my striker plate straight down where it needs to be. Okay, well that gives us a pretty good idea of where we want our side rail here. It makes sense to me because otherwise we would have had no idea where to put this thing. We're still going to be missing the tapping plate underneath here because of this old tube for an old bowl, but we'll get the rest of them in and we'll go from there. So that's where we are now. We've got the back 2 bolts in. Now the next thing we're going to work on is we're going to go back to the instructions and see if we can follow them from here on out. Okay, the next step is to install these vertical retainer mounts, they're called, and the 2 little pins go to the outside of the vehicle. So the next part is, after this vertical retainer mount, is the striker. And this goes like this with this angled part towards the outside, the flat part towards the inside, and the raised part towards the top. So that's going to work just like that. Perfect. So we have that all working. Let's go install the other door and the other strike mount, and then we'll see what the next step is after that. The next step that we are going to do is to install the front door strike plate. This goes with this part towards the top and flush to the bottom of the frame of the window, so it's just on top of the gasket. And there are two 2 places to drill holes, an 1/8 inch hole. I marked mine already, so now I'm going to drill the holes and mount this up with a couple of screws. The next step is to take the bow assembly, leave the tape on it, and put one of the bolts into the 3rd hole, which is right here. And use the front hole in the bracket and go in the 3rd hole and put your tapping plate on the bottom and tighten it up. Now we've got this mounted. Now we can take off this tape. Next step is to take the bows that are not put together yet, put the male into the female and push them together, it says, until they snap. Okay, that's together. Slide the foam together. We're done. Okay, next thing to do is to do the lower bow mount. Put the pieces together, push them forward until they lock in place. Well, since this 4th hole and the back one in this bracket came out where this tube is, we're going to still try and get a bolt in. It won't be through the frame of the vehicle, but it'll be through the rail here, the belt rail. So we're just going to put a bolt in here and come from underneath with a magnet and hold a nut up from the bottom and get it to catch here. Okay, we're going to put the bolt in from the top. Push this over a little bit, yeah. And then Julie's going to go from underneath with this little magnet and the nut on the end of it, and we're going to try to catch this bolt, and at least it'll be through the belt rail. Okay, the next part is just to snap the horizontal and the vertical rods and the vertical retainer. So you want to slip this over the pins here, this groove on the vertical part. Just slip it over the pins. And then this front part, you just want to start it in the groove on the bottom and kind of get this to snap into the hole and push it forward, and it should snap right in there, and that should go in the hole. There it goes. So there you have it. The next step is to put the top on and get this plastic piece that's sewn in the front part of the tarp to go into this channel that's on your windshield. And your channel may be a little different than mine. This one's fairly difficult. You want to make sure you have it centered left and right. We had about 1 inch total extra, so we've got about a 1/2 inch overhanging on each side, and we're just getting it up, getting some slack and getting it up into the groove like that. So just make sure it's in the groove all the way along. Okay, the next step is to pull the top back a little bit and raise the rear bow up a little bit and put these snaps underneath, kind of roll them around and snap it underneath here. They should line up. The next step is to slide this back corner of the plastic underneath your corner retainer. And I think it said to center it on this bolt. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. The next step is to raise the rear bow. And to do that, we're just going to raise it up, and we're going to try to get it up to one of these 4 holes. It might be a little tight. Oops. There we go. We got it to the bottom hole. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. The next thing we're going to do is start the side curtains. And they recommend you start at the top up here, start the zipper, and go about 6 inches. So that's about 6 inches. So I started the top zipper, and now I'm starting the back zipper. Next thing is you slide this plastic part under the belt rail And if necessary, you can release the pressure on your bow and slide this around until you can start your zipper. So that's done. Now I think you're supposed to finish your zippers?
Yep.
Okay. And I think we can probably raise this up again now. So there's one side. Okay, we have both side curtains on. The next thing is to secure this plastic strip on the side curtain to the vertical bar here. And that just goes in, just wrap it around, and it'll slip right in there. That's that. Looking pretty good, we're getting there. Next thing is to secure the door flap. Take that off, wrap it around the horizontal bar, and put it back to the hook and loop, or as everybody knows it, Velcro. That's that. We can do the other side. So we've got the doors on. Next we're going to put on the upper door. Start with the front pin. Obviously take the red caps off. Start with the front pin, drop it in. You may have to tug a little bit on it to get it to stretch to the rear pin. Make sure your Velcro isn't stuck. And just make sure it's down all the way. And then you can put your Velcro on. Oops, this supposed to be inside. And it's possible when you go to fit the door, you may have to bend it in a little bit to get the proper fit. I'm going to leave mine for a while and let things kind of stretch out. We don't have the top super tight right now because it's kind of cool out. We're going to let it warm up a little bit. We put the side curtain on, the rear curtain. To put the rear curtain on, we started with the top zipper, and then we did the side zippers, and that worked out pretty well. So we're all finished. We're going to let it warm up a little bit and stretch out. Oh, one more thing. For tailgate vehicles, you have the snaps back here. There are 5 snaps, but I'm going to wait till it's a little warmer and stretch them out a little bit and see where I want them. They come with the other half of the snap, and you just drill a hole and put a screw in there. So I think it looks pretty good. It makes the Jeep look a little cooler, and I appreciate you guys watching the video. If you've got any comments or questions, feel free to leave them for me, and I can help you out with anything if I'm able to. So thanks again. We'll see you later.